Hi, in this video we will talk about the search and the sort system, and we will look at the code behind. This is probably one of the most complex topics in the code generator, how I did this. And it could be argued that I've gone a little too far here with the complexity because one of the main rules of a code generator in general is that you should create code which is very easy to maintain. But that's a dilemma because I also wanted to make an application generator with a lot of functionality, and here I'm kind of combining user-defined queries with setups like, do we only want to see records that belongs to the user who created or owns the record? Do we want to limit records to a certain other related table combined with sort facilities, etc., etc.? Suddenly things gets very complex, and you have a lot of boxes that have to kind of integrate. I will try as well the best I can to explain how these things work. The good news here is that when the code generator have done its job, you have a fairly solid solution that really is nice without having to do anything as a programmer. The bad news is if you want to go in to the code afterwards and you want to change some functionality, you really have to know what you're doing. But I will try to clarify this over the next, this will probably take around 20 minutes to describe in full. But let's look at the structure at first. The structure here is that when we create a list or a detail view, which we do in the class-based views, we in the get context where we kind of prepare the HTML, we include a query form, we include a sort form, and we include a base query form which is located in standards forms. What we then do is that we put these forms into a tabbed view in the HTML, and when we go into this tab view, we click sort or we click search. We either go directly to the getQS, which is a function that sets up the Django queries and the sort order, etc., etc., or we go over sort if it's a sort request that we are making, and then we go to the getQS, and this whole query thing here is then passed back to the list, and we have refreshed records with whatever it was the user requested. It's a lot of code, it's a lot of complexity because it comes from a lot of different places. But let's look at some code and see if we cannot try to get our heads around it. We are in the order handling system now, and we will use product as the example of how to do this search and sort thing. Let's first look at the forms that we have underneath products here. We have the standard forms, and if you go down to the bottom of the definition here, we will have a product query form, which will consist of the fields that we have either marked as search fields or that is relations within the products. In this case, we have a product grouped, which is a relation, many-to-one relation in this case. So the form itself, which is inherited from forms form, is prepared here. The same goes for the sort form. We have a product sort form here, which has a name and a product group as the fields, or as options in fields. We have two options in sort order, ascending and descending. And then we have standard two fields, a sort field and a sort order. Sort field determines which fields should be sorted, and sort order determines in which order. So that's what we have done in the forms.py. If we then go to the views.py, we have the get QS here. We'll come back to that. We'll start by looking at how we prepare a list or a detail for going to the HTML. And if you look here at the get context data, we first of all try to see if we have some kind of data inside our product query form. We try to remember what data we queried last time. So this session variable here, if that's present, we will know what we queried for last time. Then what we do is we put this data, the form data, into the product query form, which we have imported from the forms py. And we put that into context that we will later return, so that will be available, this whole form will be available in the HTML rendering. Before we do that, before we return the context, what we also do is we say, okay, the form fields for the product group should be populated. And we populate by taking all the product groups and stuffing into that field. We do the same with sort. Here, we start with form data as nothing. Then we see if we have earlier sorted in any way for products. If we have, we use that as form data. And both with the order and what field we are talking about. If not, we say the form data is none, and that means that our choices within sort is still blank. Then we do a ton of other stuff, and at the end we return the context object. If we take a small look at the HTML, which is located in templates, under product, I'll take product list here. And we scroll a little downwards. Then here we have the query area expandable. We have the tabs here. And here we have the query form that is actually set up over here in the view. And we also have the sort form, which is set up here a little downwards. There's the sort form. We have a base query form as well, which is a form we set up for searching for users and dates, updated, created dates and stuff like that. This base query form is found underneath standards, which is here, inside the forms py, which is here. And here's our base query form where we have the created date, we have the updated date, created by, updated by, owner, user. This is every time the same form. So we do not generate that from table to table. It's the same every time, so it's a standard. But that's basic. This is basically how we prepare an HTML. And we know the results already. We can see it right here. We have the search here, name, product group, which is populated. We have the users and dates. We have the sort, and we have the help. So that's the preparation of how to do that. We will now take a look at how we then execute things. If we sort, and we can sort by either clicking on the header, and you will sort descending, ascending, or we same here, or we can go into the query button, say sort, and set up how we want things sorted, and click on the sort button. Those are the two ways, and we will take a look now at the code that does this for us. When we click the sort button, or we click on the header, we are redirected to a redirect view, which is called product sort. And in product sort, we go in and we check whether we have a sort order inside the form we chose, or the link we clicked on the header. If we have a sort order, we kind of set it up. If we do not, we set it standard to ascending. We check if we have a sort name, which we should have, and if we don't have it, we set the name standard to name. And then basically what we do is we call products list again. In the products list, which is up here, we have a get query set. That's kind of the first thing the list class-based view does. And the query set will be set from the function called getQS, which is quite a complex thing, which is up here. The first part of the getQS is about sorting. I try to get the session variable product sort order here. If not, I set it to ascending again. Then I go in and I try to get the name, and I put a minus between or before the name if it's a descending, and I don't do anything if it's an ascending. And by doing that, I have the sort name. After that, I start setting up the search or the query itself. The structure of this program here is very much depending on whether, when we defined the table definition in the first place, whether we said we want to see all records, or users should only see their own records, or is the records we see, are they limited to and dependent on another table where we chose a record. What you see here is the version where we see everything and we're not limited to anything. The code would be slightly more complex if the other options were filled out. Basically what we do here is we go through each parameter, that's each query parameter. In this case it would be name and product group. We determine the field type. We have something we call get query value, which is a fairly complex function as well. And that will be described in a separate video, because that's again fairly complex. But basically what get query value does is that it figures out whether it's a greater than or smaller than or greater than equal, contain, whether it's a dates we handle, and then how to set up all these things depending on field types and operators. If in the parameter list we just have all, which basically means we have clicked the show all button, we reset the query, and we set the saved query into a session variable, and we also do the same for the form. If there, on the other hand, is a query already, which basically means that something happens inside the parameter list, we execute that query, and that query is a dictionary. That's why we have the 2 asterisks in front, and we do it by order by, and the order by is an array. That's why we have 1 asterisk in front. Then we save the query for next time, and we save the parameter list in the form for next time. If we do not have a query and we don't have a parameter list, we try to find a saved query already, something that is already saved from last time we did a query. If that is available, we retrieve that and we use that as a parameter list. And then at the end, if we have that, we execute that, and we return that query set. This is complex, and I've tried to describe it as well as I can right now. The best way is probably to look at the code yourself and see what happens. But the whole thing in query, the getQS function, is basically we start putting up a sort order, then we go through a parameter list that we pass into something called getQueryValue. If it's an all, if we have passed the keyword all, we show all, we reset everything. If we have a query, we use the query we just created. Basically, that was by filling out the query form in the interface. If we do not have a query, we check if we already had a query saved, and if we already had a query saved, we use that one. If we do not have a query saved, and we also do not have anything defined in a query, well, then we just view all, which is down here. Then it's kind of a reset. So that was a little about this whole getQS. I think I will actually do the getQueryValue already. The getQueryValue function is located under standards, and it's called under something called query functions, and we have it right here. It's called getQueryValue. It has 2 input variables. It has a query value and it has a field type. I start by stripping both in the left and the right side the query value. I check, and let me show you something before that. If you look at the help in the query here, you will see that we have these equal, smaller than equal to, greater than equal to, strings with stars in front or after. We can write the word between. We have handling of how to search for dates or just months, or dates and month, or weekdays and weeks and stuff like that here. We have a whole bunch of stuff that we can do. This is exactly what we're doing over here. We go in and we say, okay, if the first 3 characters of the query value is WD, then it's because we want to search for a weekday. If the field type is also a date field or a date time field, then that makes a whole lot of sense, and we search the operator is then weekday. If not, we just say, oh, then it's probably an exact search, it's some string or some other thing, and we search for that. And then the query value itself is then set from 3 characters ahead, because we remove then the WD equal to. And then we start building up a query structure where we say, okay, the operator, which is this one, equals the query value. We do the same where we check the first 4 with year, month, date. And we do that for all these different possibilities we have to set. We can set in front of things to determine different ways of searching. And if we go downwards here, we are down to week and date, and now we get down to the symbol operators. If we have written between from start, we go in and we strip the word between, because now we know what it is, and then we figure out exactly how we should deal with that according to the Django search methods. We have a greater than equal to, we put the operator like that. We have a less than equal to, put an operator like that, etc., etc. We also have the contain system, where if we have a star at the end, we say ends with, if it's a char field or a text field, because if not, it doesn't make sense. If we have a star both in the end and but not in the, or in the start but not in the end, it starts with. If we have stars in both ends, it contains, and if nothing else, it's just exact values. So that's the whole get query value. And that's the way we deal with each and every field that is filled out in the query form. We simply go in and make structures that that fits the way that Django works. Here, and we put all these into the results of all these into a dictionary. So that's how that works. That also means that if you ever would like to change some of this, you want to implement your own functionality, your own equal to or less than or between or some other kind of stuff that you'd like to search on, the only thing you have to do is to go into the code underneath standards, find the query function, take that out, and add whatever you want to add to this system. I hope that you got some of this. I know this is extremely complex, but if at least you this inspired you to go in and actually study the code, then I guess I'm happy. It's a very complex topic, this one. Thanks for listening, and see you on the next video.